There's a moment in life when God doesn't whisper, He commands. And sometimes that command isn't go, it's let go. And let's be honest, that's the hardest command of all. Not because we don't trust God, but because we've trusted that thing, that relationship, that job, that dream for so long it became our identity. But hear me, what you're holding on to might be the very thing keeping you from what God is trying to release into your life. We say we want peace, but we hold on to anxiety. We say we want breakthrough, but we cling to broken habits. We say we want God's will, but we grip so tightly to our plan that there's no room left in our hands for His. When God says let go, it's not because He wants to leave you empty. It's because He wants to fill your life with something greater. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means giving over. It means trusting the hands that formed the universe to now shape your future. It means walking by faith, not dragging baggage from your past. It means learning how to grieve what was so you can grow into what's next. Some of you are still holding on to things God already released you from, and it's draining you, emotionally, spiritually, physically. But today, God's not just telling you to release it. He's inviting you to trust Him with it. Let go, not because it's easy, but because your future depends on it. You don't need to carry the weight of what didn't work out. You don't need to keep dragging what God already buried. What if your next blessing requires both hands? And right now, one is still clinging to the last chapter. What if your miracle isn't delayed? It's just waiting for your obedience. Letting go is not loss. Letting go is alignment. And when you align with God, you don't lose anything that was meant to stay. You just clear space for what was always meant to come. When God says, let go, He's not offering a polite piece of advice. He's not suggesting that you consider it if you have time, if it's convenient, or if it fits your schedule. He's commanding you. And that command may come gently, or it may come in the form of loss, discomfort, or a sudden shift. But make no mistake, it's a divine directive, not a casual nudge. And the reason it feels so heavy sometimes is because He's asking you to release something that you've grown emotionally attached to, something that once made sense in your life, but is no longer serving His purpose. Often, we mistake God's silence as permission to hold on. But silence is not approval, it's space for obedience. And many of us are waiting on a sign, waiting on confirmation, waiting for closure before we let go. But when God gives a command, He's not obligated to explain. Faith doesn't begin with understanding, it begins with trust. And trusting Him means acting even when your feelings haven't caught up to your faith. Letting go feels like tearing away part of your identity because we often intertwine ourselves with the thing God is asking us to release. That job becomes our security. That relationship becomes our worth. That dream becomes our direction. And when God says, let go, it can feel like we're losing who we are. But that's the moment He begins redefining us, not based on what we have, but on who He is. The letting go is not about subtraction. It's the beginning of divine recalibration. The problem isn't that we don't love God. The problem is that we trust our grip more than His grace. We believe our plan more than His process. And we've convinced ourselves that if we let go, we'll fall. But letting go isn't free fall, it's faith fall. You're not falling into nothing. You're falling into the hands that shaped your destiny before you ever took your first breath. The hands that catch you don't miss. Letting go becomes a test of lordship. Who's really in control? Who really decides what stays and what goes? If God is your Lord, not just your Savior, then your obedience must outweigh your opinion. God didn't part the Red Sea while the Israelites were sitting still. He did it when they started walking. Sometimes the sea won't move until you do. And your willingness to obey God's command, to let go, becomes the key to seeing the next miracle in your life. It's easy to obey when the command makes sense. It's easy to follow when the path is lit. But God often speaks, let go, when it still feels good, when it still looks fruitful, when nothing on the outside is screaming danger. That's because God isn't just dealing with your situation. He's dealing with your soul. He's pulling your heart into alignment with heaven. And sometimes the lesson isn't in what you're letting go of, but in the process of trusting Him enough to release it. Obedience doesn't wait for comfort. Obedience doesn't ask for guarantees. Obedience is instant trust in the voice of God, regardless of how loud your fears scream in response. When Abraham took Isaac to the mountain, He didn't wait until the last minute to obey. He moved the moment God called. And that act of surrender unlocked a generational blessing. Letting go isn't just about you. It's about what's coming through you after your obedience. So when God says, let go, don't ask why, ask when. And the answer is always now. Not when it's easier, not when it hurts less, not when others understand, but now, because delayed obedience is still disobedience. And the longer you grip what God has called you to release, the longer you stay stuck in a place He's already moved past. We spend so much time praying for new doors, new blessings, and new breakthroughs, yet we hold on tightly to the very things God is asking us to release. And here's the truth. You cannot receive what's next if your hands are still full of what's past. God is generous, but He doesn't force His gifts into clenched fists. If your hands are closed, gripping fear, regret, control, or resentment, you simply don't have the capacity to hold what He wants to place in them. Imagine going into a new season dragging the weight of the last one. It slows you down. It confuses your identity. It causes you to question if you're even worthy of something better. But here's the lie. We often believe that what we have now is all there is. And so we cling. We cling to what's familiar. We cling to what used to work. But God doesn't do leftovers. He doesn't recycle your pain without purpose. If He's asking you to let it go, it means He's preparing something better. Clenched fists don't just prevent you from receiving, they also keep you in a posture of defense. You're so busy protecting yourself from the potential of being hurt again that you miss the potential of being healed. You've armored yourself with old disappointments, and now, even God's love can't get through. You've got to open your hands, not just to release what's toxic, but to receive what's transforming. And let's be honest, sometimes we want the blessing, but we don't want to surrender the burden. We say we want peace, but we cling to chaos. We say we want freedom, but we hold on to guilt. We say we trust God, but we grip control like we're still the ones who hold the outcome. God isn't just looking for belief. He's looking for release. He wants to bless you, but He won't bless what you refuse to surrender. This posture of open hands is more than symbolic. It's spiritual. It says, God, I don't know what's coming next, but I know You're the one who gives it. I'm not going to grip what You've already called me to let go of. I trust You more than I trust my own understanding. That's the kind of posture that heaven responds to. It's not weakness, it's worship. Some of us are waiting on something big, waiting on the job offer, waiting on the healing, waiting on the breakthrough. But could it be that God is waiting on you to loosen your grip on what used to be, so He can deliver what's always been meant for you? What if the delay isn't denial? It's God's mercy giving you time to let go so you can fully embrace the new. Open hands are not just ready to receive, they're ready to bless. When you're no longer bound by what you're carrying, you become a vessel that God can use to pour into others. You don't just get free, you help others find freedom too. But it starts with that quiet, powerful decision to unclench your fists and say, God, whatever You want to take, I release it. And whatever You want to give, I receive it. You weren't created to live in survival mode. Holding on to dead weight isn't strength. It's stubbornness. And God didn't call you to barely hold on. He called you to live open, live full, live free. So open your hands, because what God has for you is greater than what you're afraid to let go of. Letting go is not giving up. It's giving over. One of the greatest lies we believe when God calls us to let go is that we're quitting, that we're failing, that we're somehow less faithful because we couldn't hold it together. But listen, letting go isn't giving up. It's giving over. It's not a sign of weakness. It's an act of deep surrender. You're not walking away because you're broken. You're stepping aside because you trust the one who's building something greater behind the scenes. We often think surrender looks like sitting in silence, but sometimes surrender is the boldest move you can make because it means you've recognized that your strength has limits and God's power doesn't. It means you're mature enough to admit, God, I've done all I can, and now I need You to do what only You can. Giving over is not backing down. It's bowing down before the God who sees the full picture. The world says, don't let go, keep fighting. But God says, hand it to me. The world glorifies control, hustle, and grit. But God blesses yielded hearts. those who are willing to let go of their agenda so they can fully embrace His. When you give something over to God, you're not discarding it. You're putting it in the most capable hands in the universe. And the outcome, whether it looks like what you expected or not, will always be for your good. Letting go doesn't mean the thing didn't matter. It doesn't mean the relationship wasn't real, or the dream wasn't valid, or the effort wasn't sincere. It just means the season has shifted, and what served you once can't sustain you now. God's voice doesn't always call you to run harder. It sometimes calls you to release deeper. And in that release is where your peace will begin. We are trained to equate letting go with failure, but spiritually, it's just the opposite. Letting go is one of the greatest acts of faith you can perform, because it means you are no longer relying on your own understanding. You are no longer trying to manipulate the outcome. You are saying, God, even if it doesn't look the way I hoped, I trust that you are working all things for my good. This kind of giving over doesn't just change the situation. It changes you. It frees you from the pressure to perform. It unhooks you from the weight of outcomes you were never meant to carry. It restores your identity in God, not in what you do, what you manage, or what you try to control. You find out who you are when you stop trying to prove yourself and start trusting the one who already approved of you. Sometimes the miracle doesn't come until you give it over. The healing doesn't happen until you stop holding onto the wound. The restoration doesn't arrive until you stop clenching the pieces. When the boy gave his lunch to Jesus, it didn't multiply in his hands. It multiplied once he gave it over. And some of you are holding on to a little when God wants to bless it into more, but only once you surrender it. So don't confuse giving up with giving over. One is an act of defeat. The other is an act of divine trust. When God says, let go, He's not asking you to lose hope. He's asking you to shift it. Take it off your shoulders and place it into His hands, because you were never meant to carry what only He can carry, and He's never failed to handle what you hand over. Clinging to the familiar can cost you the future. There's a reason God sometimes makes the familiar feel uncomfortable, because He knows if it stayed cozy, we'd never move. Familiarity feels safe. It feels predictable. It gives us the illusion of control. But the truth is, familiar doesn't always mean faithful, and comfortable doesn't always mean God is still in it. In fact, the very thing you're holding on to because it feels secure might be the very thing standing between you and your next level of growth. Think about the Israelites. They were delivered from Egypt, yet the moment they faced resistance, they started longing for slavery again, not because it was better, but because it was familiar. That's what fear does. It doesn't fight your faith with something terrifying. It fights it with something known. Fear says, better the pain you understand than the promise you can't yet see. But faith requires stepping into the unknown, trusting that God's future is worth more than your past comfort. You can't step into destiny while dragging the dead weight of history. If you're still wrapped up in what used to be, how can you embrace what could be? There comes a point where you have to stop rehearsing the pain of yesterday and start walking toward the purpose of tomorrow. And that means letting go of the trap of what's familiar, even if it once served you well. Just because it got you here doesn't mean to take you further. Some of the hardest things to release are the ones that used to be blessings. The job that once provided for you. The relationship that once healed you. The role that once gave you identity. But when God says, let go, it's because the blessing has expired and the purpose has shifted. If you keep holding on to what was, you'll miss what is. God's provision always flows in the now, not in nostalgia. Growth will always challenge your comfort zone. And most people won't tell you this, but when God starts stretching you, it's going to feel like something's breaking. It's going to feel risky. It's going to feel unfamiliar. But that's not the enemy. It's elevation. It's God showing you that what you called normal was never supposed to be permanent. He's not punishing you. He's preparing you. You cannot follow God fully and cling to comfort tightly. One will have to go. And for some of us, the decision isn't about good or bad. It's about God or good enough. Are you willing to release the familiar place, the familiar mindset, the familiar rhythm for the unfamiliar glory of what God has ahead? Because comfort may keep you stable, but calling will stretch you. And it's in the stretch where miracles happen. The most dangerous place to live is not in failure. It's in familiarity without fruit. It's staying stuck in cycles that no longer serve you. It's replaying the same prayers, the same habits, the same excuses, hoping God will bless disobedience just because it's easy. But God doesn't bless stuck. He blesses surrendered. And sometimes the only thing keeping you from stepping forward is your refusal to let go of what feels familiar. So today, take inventory. What are you still holding on to because it's familiar, even though God has already called you beyond it? The future isn't found in the grip of the past. It's found in the open-handed posture of faith that says, God, I trust that where you're leading me is greater than where I've been. God's let go is always for your good. When God says, let go, it's never to punish you. It's to protect you. He's not trying to take something from you just to watch you suffer. He's removing what can't go with you into your next season. Every divine no is backed by a higher lies. You may not see it now, but God's command to let go is always grounded in His love for you and His vision for your future. We tend to see letting go as loss. But what if it's actually liberation? What if it's not something being taken from you, but something being cleared for you? The enemy wants you to focus on what's leaving. God wants you to focus on what's coming. The pain of letting go is temporary, but the fruit of obedience is eternal. That thing you're gripping might seem good, but God's plan is always better than your preference. God's perspective is infinite. He sees where the path leads. He sees the end from the beginning. And because He loves you deeply, He'll disrupt your comfort to protect your calling. If God says, let it go, you better believe it's because something on the other side of your surrender is going to bless you in ways you never imagined. He's not trying to hurt you. He's trying to heal you from something you didn't even know was holding you back. It's like a parent who removes a toy from a child's hand, not out of cruelty, but because that toy is broken and could cause harm. The child doesn't understand at the moment. All they feel is the separation. But the parent sees beyond the immediate emotion to the long-term protection. God is that kind of father. He's not taking things from you randomly. He's taking them for a reason. And trust me, if you knew what He knew, you'd let it go too. Sometimes God removes good things to make room for God things. You might be holding on to something that looks right, but isn't aligned with your purpose. Maybe that relationship is fun, but pulling you off course. Maybe that opportunity brings money, but not peace. Maybe that plan fits your timeline, but not God's will. Whatever it is, if God's saying let go, it means it no longer matches where He's taking you. Letting go is not God leaving you empty. It's Him clearing space. It's Him pulling out the weeds so real growth can happen. It's Him ending what you thought was your future so He can introduce you to your destiny. And sometimes, yes, it hurts, but even that pain has purpose. God uses it to grow your trust, deepen your dependence, and anchor your identity in Him, not in what you held. If you could see the spiritual danger behind the thing you're clinging to, you wouldn't just let it go, you'd run from it. But because God sees what you can't, He steps in like a surgeon, cutting with precision, removing what's infected, even if it's painful. He doesn't just want you to survive. He wants you to be whole. So He prunes. He separates. He strips away what's comfortable to secure what's consecrated. So when you hear the voice of God say, let go, don't resist it. Don't mourn what's being removed so much that you miss what's being revealed. The letting go is never without purpose. The pain is never wasted. The loss is never final. It's all part of a greater process, a process designed not to destroy you, but to deliver you into something immeasurably greater than what you thought you needed.